Hello and welcome to Filtered. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me today. This is a special edition of Filtered. I'll be doing a deep dive into the inaugural address of the new mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, and analyzing his rhetorical techniques, his strengths, his weaknesses as a communicator. Now, if this is your first time watching this show, let me tell you a few of the ground rules. I'm here as a sane, sensible centrist. My background is as a communications and personal development expert. So I have not trained or worked with the new mayor of New York City, so there's no conflict of interest there. But I have personally done presentation skills training, workshop training for presidents of countries, mayors, prime ministers, Nobel Peace Prize winners, and people like this for inaugural speeches just like this. So I'm bringing to you professional background. Now, a caveat. I'm occasionally going to say something critical of Mamdani. It doesn't mean I'm doing that from a right-wing conservative perspective. I'm occasionally going to praise him. It doesn't mean that I am endorsing socialism. So most, not all, but most of what I talk about today will be non-political, apolitical analysis of his communication skills. Like it or not, we're going to be seeing a lot of this young man in the coming years as the mayor of the largest city in America, the most important media center, financial center, cultural capital of the United States, and people in New York would say of the world. He has a huge, huge bully pulpit, and he's not afraid to use it. So this will be a deep dive analysis. Let's hop right in.
My fellow New Yorkers.
Yeah, and you see right out of the gate, he has a relaxed smile. He looks comfortable. He looks confident. He does not in any way look like a nervous, uncomfortable 33-year-old scared for his life. He looks like he's having fun, and he's not afraid to pause. You can tell he's relishing the moment.
Today begins a new era. I stand before you, moved by the privilege of taking this sacred oath.
He's pausing quite nicely. This is a difficult type of speech for many communicators and politicians because there's such a larger audience. You're trying to appeal to your hardcore supporters who are there physically standing in front of you, thousands, but you also have to appeal to hundreds of thousands, millions watching on TV in the city and around the world. So there's two different audiences. He's playing it nicely. Sometimes speakers in this situation shout too loudly, which is good for the in-person audience, but comes across as extreme to the television audience. So he's pausing very nicely. It is important when you're speaking to a group that large to pause more, to give your words time to travel to people 10 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet, or 1,000 yards away.
Humbled by the faith that you have placed in me, and honored to serve as either your 111th or 112th mayor of New York City.
He gets a little laugh there, and forgive me, I don't know what that reference is. There's some confusion about the exact number of mayors, but he gets a laugh. He's smiling. It loosens him up. Now, he's clearly using a teleprompter, the traditional presentation glass teleprompter, executive teleprompter is in front of him. But you can tell he's rehearsed. He looks comfortable, confident. Many, if not most people watching him on TV or in person would not suspect that he's reading the teleprompter.
But I do not stand alone. I stand alongside you, the tens of thousands of you gathered here in Lower Manhattan, warmed against the January chill by the resurgent flame of hope. I stand alongside countless more New Yorkers watching from cramped kitchens in Flushing and barbershops in East New York.
So he's right out of the gate sounding somewhat poetic, really knitting together the various constituencies he wants to represent. His movement comes across as very comfortable, not using a lot of hand motion. You don't have to. It's a cold, cold day in New York City. But his head is moving. His face is moving. I'm not seeing overly quick head jerky movements, but he's also not freezing his head looking at just one of the glass panes of the teleprompter. He's moving back and forth gracefully and doing it in a way where it's not too rhythmic. Some politicians are comfortable reading a teleprompter, but they're too consistently looking for an exact 20 seconds on one slide and then another 20 seconds to the other screen and back and forth. So he's mixing it up nicely.
From cell phones propped against the dashboards of parked taxi cabs at LaGuardia, from hospitals in Mott Haven and libraries in El Barrio that have too long known only neglect. I stand alongside construction workers in steel-toed boots and halal cart.
Nice, vivid imagery. Construction workers in steel-toed boots, halal workers. So he's really going quite descriptive. By the way, the address is about 24 minutes long. I'm watching this for the first time with you. I'm giving you my unbridled reaction, the way I think it plays out with audiences, not only in New York City, but around the world.
Vendors whose knees ache from working all day.
Whose knees ache from working all day. So he's really digging deeply into his credentials as a representative of the working man, of the working class, of blue-collar workers, and putting a spotlight on them, not just the big tech leaders, the way a lot of other politicians do these days.
I stand alongside neighbors who carry a plate of food to the elderly couple down the hall, those in a rush who still lift strangers' strollers up subway stairs, and every person who makes the choice day after day, even when it feels impossible, to call our city home. I stand alongside over 1 million New Yorkers who voted for this day nearly 2 months ago. And I stand just as resolutely alongside those who did not.
So there you can see the two executive presentation teleprompters. Those have been around since the 1950s. I've owned them before. So that is not a new technology at all. Someone is following along with a little scroll and scrolling it to follow his pace. So he's not following the pace of the teleprompter. But we are coming up on 2 minutes into the inaugural address. From my eye, I haven't seen a single blunder, mistake, misstep, any kind of verbal tripping. So thus far, he hasn't gotten to a lot of meat yet, but he's established the setting, established the tone, and done it with complete confidence and authority thus far.
I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this: if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor.
Okay, so reaching out, acknowledging the fact that not everybody loves him. There's obviously some controversy based on some of his stances on foreign policy, on Israel, the embrace of the label socialism. He's acknowledging that, but very clearly he says, if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor. This is a nice contrast, I think, in the eyes of many of his constituents from what they see in Washington, where the current president of the United States has clearly said, I don't have well wishes for the other political party. I want bad things for them. I wish harm to my enemies. I don't love my enemies. I want harm to come to them. This is what has essentially been said repeatedly from the Oval Office in the last year. And Mamdani here doing a clear-cut contrast, saying he is the mayor for all New Yorkers. So seeking to appear moderate and consensus-oriented. And that gets some applause.
Regardless of whether we agree, I will protect you, celebrate with you, mourn alongside you, and never, not for a second, hide from you. I thank the labor and movement leaders here today, the activists and the elected.
So this is a little bit unusual in American politics for a politician to be thanking organized labor. Organized labor has taken up an increasingly smaller percentage of the electorate, a smaller role in political campaigns around the country, but it was a big factor in his election. Now, we're about 2.5 minutes in, and already I think it's pretty clear to anyone who isn't coming at this from a pure partisan ideological perspective of hatred or love. Anyone looking at this neutrally and objectively would say, I think, and conclude, this guy is a clear-cut, solid communicator. He's just a good communicator in the same way Ronald Reagan was a good communicator. Bill Clinton was a world-class communicator. Barack Obama was. He is similar to that style, regardless of ideology. And again, I just mentioned people across the spectrum. I should point out to those of you watching, some of you I know will just basically become hysterical and write all sorts of nasty comments if I say anything nice about this guy because of his party label. Again, I'm not here as a partisan. I'm here giving you objective communications analysis. If you are interested in all the myriad reasons of why Ronald Reagan was a great communicator, you can search my YouTube channel. I have entire lengthy videos and even DVDs on how to speak like Ronald Reagan and emulate his positive aspects of communication. So I'm going to do the exact same here. I'm going to call the balls and strikes. So far, I'm seeing him just make nice, solid hit singles, doubles, maybe some triples. No home run yet from a rhetorical standpoint, but he's absolutely not had a single strikeout or foul yet. Let's watch more.
Officials who will return to fighting for New Yorkers the second this ceremony concludes.
We also see with him, very similar to Reagan and Clinton, he just looks happy. He has a smile on his face. Let's not forget, when this guy announced he was running for mayor, there were another dozen or so candidates ahead of him, all with more money, all with higher name recognition. He beat them all, in part because of his ability to communicate effectively, and in part because of that infectious smile we just saw right there.
And the performers who have gifted us with their talent. Thank you to Governor Hochul. Thank you as well to Mayor Adams. Dorothy.
So appearing very gracious, these are not people who supported his campaign at all, Mayor Adams in particular, but he's coming across as gracious. In some ways, kind of what people would think of as the young man who's trying to do well and work his way up. I wouldn't say he's acting in any way subservient, but he is acting in a more traditional, gracious manner than what we've seen from a lot of politicians lately.
His son, a son of Brownsville who rose from washing dishes to the highest position in our city for being here as well. He and I have had our share of disagreements, but I will always be touched that he chose me as the mayoral candidate that he would most want to be trapped with on an elevator.
So he gets a laugh. He puts a spotlight on somebody who was a former political adversary, Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams has, shall we say, a lot of baggage going out of office and very much a mixed record. I'm being charitable there, but this is not the time to relitigate old political wars. He's being very gracious, and he gets a laugh, which allows him to smile as well as everyone else.
Thank you to the two titans who, as an assembly member, I've had the privilege of being represented by in Congress, Nidia Velázquez and our incredible opening speaker, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay, mentioning AOC, she did in fact introduce him. There's some controversy there. Obviously, she is a polarizing figure in American politics. She does represent a New York City congressional district, is more popular in New York than, say, for example, Nebraska or Kansas. But he's not afraid to show who his allies are and stand with them as he's done there. But again, he's pointing out throughout the spectrum. Governor Hochul, the New York governor, he praised her. She's very much seen as a true centrist moderate. AOC, very much more on the progressive side of things. So he is showing the width and breadth of his spectrum of support.
You have paved the way for this moment. Thank you to the man whose leadership I seek most to emulate, who I am so grateful to be sworn.
So interesting there. He does give AOC credit for paving the way for this moment. She ran as a Democratic Socialist a handful of years ago, at a time when most people thought that label was the kiss of death. He did the same thing, and he's giving her credit for making people understand this is even a possible thing in America.
And by today, Senator Bernie Sanders.
And again, not afraid to praise another Democratic socialist. Again, Bernie Sanders caucuses with the Democratic Party in the United States Senate, ran for the Democratic nomination, but considers himself very much a Democratic socialist. So this is unique in American politics, or certainly for most of the last 100 years.
Thank you to my teams, from the assembly to the campaign to the transition, and now the team I am so excited to lead from City Hall. Thank you to my parents, Mama and Baba, for raising me, for teaching me how to be in this world, and for having brought me to this city.
So giving a little biography, coming across quite touching, thanking the people that he sincerely appreciates. We're not really getting into vision of the mayoralty yet, but we're only 4 minutes into the presentation. These are things that are standard and customary in inaugural addresses, and he is, by all accounts, doing it with great skill. There's warmth coming through, the smiles coming through, the charm is coming through. And let's not forget, this is a guy who went down to Washington, D.C. and even charmed President Trump. That's hard to do if you're a Democrat.
Thank you to my family from Kampala to Delhi. And thank you to my wife, Rama. For being my best friend and for always showing me the beauty in everyday things. And most of all, thank you to the people of New York. A moment like this comes rarely. Seldom do we hold such an opportunity to transform and reinvent.
So again, his pacing is really quite excellent because he's not rushing and yet he's not too slow. If people want to applaud or cheer or laugh, he's not stepping on it. He's not acting like he's in a big hurry, but he's not slow and plodding. He has excellent variation of tone, speed, and pitch. He's clearly rehearsed this. He is someone who understands the importance of communication, and it's showing so far.
Rarer still is it the people themselves whose hands are the ones upon the levers of change. And yet we know that too often in our past, moments of great possibility have been promptly surrendered to small imagination and smaller ambition. What was promised was never pursued. What could have changed remained the same. For the New Yorkers most eager to see our city remade, the weight has only grown heavier. The weight has only grown longer.
The weight has only grown heavier. The weight has only grown longer. That's a nice rhetorical flourish. He's using repetition, which all great orators do. And he is changing a little bit at the end to create variety. And he's changing the volume in pitch. So it's a great rhetorical flourish.
Writing this address, I have been told that this is the occasion to reset expectations. That I should use this opportunity to encourage the people of New York to ask for little and expect even less. I will do no such thing.
So a little bit of a straw man argument, but that's not an unusual rhetorical device. I wouldn't put that quite in the category of demagoguery yet. But yes, in fact, many people, whether they're advising him or not, are saying, look, it's all well and good to make all kinds of promises, but the position of mayor of New York City, you can't really do things like raise taxes. The state legislature has vast control. The governor has control. Various boards have controls. So at some level, you do have to set expectations appropriately. There's been a lot of chatter that let's see how he handles it.
The only expectation I seek to reset is that of small expectations. Beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously.
So we will govern expansively and audaciously. That has sort of a nice ring to it. It's not quite what you would call conversational language. It is really presenting himself as a bold change agent. It is letting people realize that he's not going to be just sort of a normal, standard, status quo New York City mayor. So he is putting down a marker there.
May not always succeed, but never will we be accused of lacking the courage to try. To those who insist that the era of big government is over, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives.
Okay, so that's kind of bold in your face. President Bill Clinton famously said the era of big government is over. That was seen as a sort of a smart moderating positioning of the Democratic Party, which had been seen as too far left in the eyes of many voters, because let's not forget, before Bill Clinton was elected president in 92, the Democrats had had a long stretch, not since 1976 winning. So that was seen as a good corrective. Here, Mamdani is saying something a little bit different. He's essentially saying if the government of New York City can help people, they're not going to reflexively take the position that government should always stay out of people's lives.
For too long, we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity from those who serve the public. I cannot blame anyone who has come to question the role of government, whose faith in democracy has been eroded by decades of apathy. We will restore that trust by walking.
So this is interesting positioning, and this is very much consistent with his belief as a democratic socialist, because we do live in an era when so many politicians of both major political parties stress it's got to be the private sector, the private sector, the private sector. Let's make government as lean, as efficient as possible. And he's not saying let's double, triple the size of government. He can't do that even if he wanted to. But he is saying that, in fact, it is time for government to take a more central role in improving people's lives. So he's very much making a clear-cut ideological statement here in ways that is not offensive to most, in my view, most voters and citizens in New York City.
A different path. One where government is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling. One where excellence is no longer the exception. We expect greatness from the cooks wielding 1,000 spices, from those who stride out onto our Broadway stages, and from our starting point guard at Madison Square Garden. Let us demand the same from those.
So there was an interesting little hand gesture there. I don't know, it was bitterly cold in New York City. And I would say we're more than 7 minutes in. I have not detected a single solitary slip, mistake, misreading of the teleprompter yet. So I'm not putting that down as an error. But that was the first time he did anything sort of a little bit unusual visually, just getting up there and sort of scratching his face and beard.
To work in government. In a city where the mere names of our streets are associated with the innovation of the industries that call them home, we will make the word City Hall synonymous with both resolve and results. As we embark upon this work, let us advance a new question, a new answer to the question asked of every generation. Who does New York?
He said as we embark. Now, that's made me chuckle a little, because so many people recently have talked about, oh, somebody used the word embark. I know they had ChatGPT writing this. I don't really think that he had ChatGPT write his inaugural address. Maybe it edited it. But embark is one of these sort of big, flowery words that frankly is appropriate on a day of an inauguration, because you are talking about big, bold visions affecting people's lives. So I'm not troubled by that, but I'm sure there's some people in the audience who said, uh-oh, he used the word embark. Let's give him credit where credit's due, though. So far, he is not using excessive jargon or lingo or bureaucratic language or excessively highfalutin language. So I don't take off points for that.
Belong to. For much of our history, the response from City Hall has been simple. It belongs only to the wealthy and well-connected, those who never strain to capture the attention of those in power. Working people have reckoned with the consequences. Crowded classrooms and public housing developments where the elevators sit out of orders. Roads littered with potholes and buses that arrive half an hour late, if at all. Wages that do not rise and corporations that rip off consumers and employees alike.
So here he is surfacing, evoking citizens' frustrations with City Hall in a way that you can do when you're the outsider. No one blaming him for that. He hasn't worked in City Hall. So he is surfacing people's genuine frustrations and saying he wants to make it better. This works really well in your first inaugural address. It doesn't work in re-election inaugural addresses.
And still, there have been brief, fleeting moments where the equation changed. 12 years ago, Bill de Blasio stood where I stand now as he promised to put an end to economic and social inequalities that divided our city into two. In 1990, David Dinkins swore the same oath I swore today, vowing to celebrate the gorgeous mosaic that is New York, where every one of us is deserving of a decent life. And nearly 6 decades before him, Fiorella LaGuardia took office with the goal of building a city that was far greater and more beautiful for the hungry and the poor. Some of these mayors achieved more success than others, but they were unified by a shared belief that New York could belong to more than just a privileged few. It could belong to those who operate our subways and rake our parks, those who feed us biryani and beef patties, picanha and pastrami on rye. And they know that this belief could be made true if only government dared to work hardest for those who work hardest.
So really showing his sort of common man touch, talking about various foods of interest to different ethnicities and frankly, everyone who likes different ethnic food in New York. So he's showing a great common touch, putting himself in an historical context of what he's trying to do, showing the historical gravity of the moment. He also seems to realize many people are looking at him for the first time around the world, not just New York City, not just the country, but the world. And all they've heard is he's this young kid who's this radical, dangerous, wild-eyed communist socialist. That has been the chatter, certainly among conservative media, Fox-owned and Rupert Murdoch-owned media. And so if people are just looking at him for the first time, I think a lot of people are going to conclude, wow, this guy seems like a very mature 33, 34-year-old man. He seems composed. He seems rational. He seems quite confident and authoritative. So he is meeting the expectations and perhaps exceeding the expectations of many people watching him for the first time.
Over the years to come, my administration will resurrect that legacy. City Hall will deliver an agenda of safety, affordability, and abundance, where government looks and...
Now, interestingly, this is, I think, significant. He mentioned safety ahead of affordability. Throughout his campaign, affordability was the big word. He hit it again and again and again and again. Since the campaign, even during the campaign, so many of his detractors tried to paint a picture that he's a socialist, so crime is going to be rampant. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be muggings on every single street corner. So whether that was a way of sort of addressing that concern or not, it is interesting to me that he mentioned safety ahead of affordability and that he packaged it with abundance, which is making things better for everyone, not just needy people. So interesting packaging and repackaging of some of his main campaign themes there.
Lives like the people it represents, never flinches in the fight against corporate greed, and refuses to cower before challenges that others have deemed too complicated. In so doing, we will provide our own answer to that age-old question. Who does New York belong to? Well, my friends, we can look to Madiba and the South African Freedom Charter. New York belongs to all who live in it.
So interesting quote. Quoting people from South Africa is not what you see typical in inaugural addresses of American politicians. He, of course, was born in Africa, different heritage, different personal story, different perspective. And he's not afraid to bring that out. He's not hiding that.
Together, we will tell a new story of our city. This will not be a tale of one city governed only by the 1%, nor will it be a tale of two cities, the rich versus the poor. It will be a tale of 8.5 million cities, each of them a New Yorker with hopes and fears, each a universe, each of them woven together. The authors of this story.
This is a very unifying message. Again, this is not what his enemies were hoping for. They thought he would get up and just bash billionaires, bash the 1%. That's not what he's doing. He's presenting a very unified message of bringing all New Yorkers together. Now, that's easy to do your first day of office. You can be a great speaker at inauguration and be horrible in governance. But it's very difficult, in my view, in my perspective and history of working with politicians for 40 years, to be really great at governing and be awful at communicating, because so much of governing is about communicating. It's not everything, but it is the first big step. And he's showing, as he did throughout the campaign, that he is, in fact, a world-class communicator.
Will speak Pashto and Mandarin, Yiddish and Creole. They will pray in mosques, at shul, at church, at gurudwaras and mandirs and temples. And many will not pray.
So does mention a temple, does mention a mosque. And I cut him off right there. I think he's about to say many don't pray at all. That's unusual in American politics. So often we hear people say, oh, you're about people of all religious faiths. They always leave out the growing percentage, the tens of millions of people in America who don't really like religion at all, and he seems to include them as well.
At all. They will be Russian Jewish immigrants in Brighton Beach, Italians in Rossville, and Irish families in Woodhaven, many of whom came here with nothing but a dream of a better life, a dream which has withered away. They will be young people in cramped Marble Hill apartments where the walls shake when the subway passes. They will be black homeowners in St. Albans, whose homes represent a physical testament to triumph over decades of lesser paid labor and redlining. They will be Palestinian New Yorkers in Bay Ridge.
Mentioning Palestinians in Bay Ridge, some controversy there, evoking disagreements during the campaign about various politics in the Middle East, which I'm not going to get into in great detail in this analysis. But again, he is attempting to be very, very unifying, stressing he wants to be for the mayor of everyone, but taking the time to list various constituencies who traditionally have not been given the spotlight by City Hall or in inaugural addresses.
Who will no longer have to contend with a politics that speaks of universalism and then makes them the exception. Few of these 8.5 million will fit into neat and easy boxes. Some will be voters from Hillside Avenue or Fordham Road who supported President Trump a year before they voted for me, tired of being failed by their party's establishment.
Yeah, very significant there. He did this throughout the campaign. He went up and talked to people who voted for Trump, asked them why they voted for Trump, and then asked them what they wanted in a new mayor. There he is referencing people who, in fact, voted for Trump and then voted for him. So stressing sort of bipartisan appeal across the spectrum appeal, not what you would think of as someone as some sort of hardcore extremist left or right, or what many people in America believe a socialist should be doing, which is condemning anyone who voted for Trump. That's not what he was doing. He was unifying them and asking for their votes and taking their votes. So this is one of the things that is different about him from a lot of candidates, right or left, if they're running for office for something out of the mainstream, whether as a socialist, social democrat, a hardcore libertarian or others, so often people on the extremes come across as angry. They're so angry at the status quo. Now, you may not favor the stances that he's run on, his particular policy positions, but no serious person, in my view, can listen to this guy or watch this guy and come away with a sense that he's some kind of angry guy, an angry, dangerous radical. He's really coming across as extremely friendly, likable, and upbeat and positive.
Majority will not use the language that we often expect from those who wield influence. I welcome the change. For too long, those fluent in the good grammar of civility have deployed decorum to mask agendas of cruelty. Many of these people have been betrayed by the established order. But in our administration, their needs will be met. Their hopes and dreams and interests will be reflected transparently in government. They will shape our future. And if for too long these communities have existed as distinct from one another, we will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Oh, now, interesting choice of words there. The warmth of collectivism. Now, that is going to raise red flags among some Americans. Collectivism, that's the Soviet Union. That's Mao's Cultural Revolution. So that is a word that triggers a lot of people. He specifically disdained rugged individualism. But he's doing it not with a sneer. He's not yelling it. Again, he's so far been extraordinarily unifying. Some of you, again, if you're a first-time viewer or listener of this show, you're maybe thinking, oh my gosh, TJ's in the tank. He must be the campaign manager for Mamdani. No. In fact, if I lived in New York City, and I don't, I'm not entirely sure who I would vote for. And I will tell you, having lived in New York City in the past, I have, in fact, voted for Republicans and Democrats and independents in New York City mayoral politics. So don't just say, well, TJ hasn't said anything negative about this guy yet. He must be in the tank. I'm giving it to you straight, fair, and objectively. So I just flagged this word collectivism, which I know is a trigger. I can imagine the Wall Street Journal editorial board getting worked up and ready to write an editorial just on that one word. Let's see where he goes from here.
Our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it. Because no matter what you eat, how you pray, or where you come from, the words that most define us are the two we all share: New Yorkers.
Again, stressing very unifying themes, bringing people together, which is standard in most inaugural addresses, although it's not what we've heard in Washington in, let's say, 2 out of the last 3 inaugural addresses.
And it will be New Yorkers who reform a long broken property tax system. New Yorkers who will create a new Department of Community Safety that will tackle the mental health crisis and let the police focus on the job they signed up to do. New Yorkers who will take on the bad landlords who mistreat their tenants and free small business owners from the shackles of bloated bureaucracy.
So free small business owners from the shackles of bureaucracy. That's a line that any conservative Republican could have uttered in an inaugural address. So it is interesting. He is borrowing certain rhetorical flourishes from across the political spectrum.
And I am proud to be one of those New Yorkers. When we won the primary last June, there were many who said these aspirations and those who held them had come out of nowhere. Yet one man's nowhere is another man's somewhere. This movement came out of 8.5 million somewheres. Taxi cab depots and Amazon warehouses, DSA meetings and curbside domino games.
So there he mentioned DSA meetings. Most Americans don't know what that is. That's the Democratic Socialist of America. This is different. This is unique. In most parts of America, anyone who even whispers the word socialism or socialist, even if it's a part of the phrase Democratic Socialist, is instantly written off. instantly discounted as beyond the pale extremist. He has done an excellent job so far of positioning himself, the Democratic Socialist, which he hasn't thoroughly embraced yet, other than using the initials, as very much a part of the mainstream and very inclusive.
Powers that be had looked away from these places for quite some time if they'd known about them at all. So they dismissed them as nowhere. But in our city, where every corner of these 5 boroughs holds power, there is no nowhere and there is no no one. There is only New York and there are only New Yorkers.
Again, very inclusive.
8.5 million New Yorkers will speak this new era into existence. It will be loud. It will be different. It will feel like the New York we love. No matter how long you have called this city home, that love has shaped your life. I know that it has shaped mine. This is the city where I set land speed records on my Razor scooter at the age of 12. Quickest 4 blocks of my life.
Getting a laugh, sharing personal anecdotes, showing deep roots with the city.
The city where I ate powdered donuts at halftimes during AYSO soccer games and realized I probably was not going to be going pro. The city where I devoured 2 big slices at Coronet's Pizza, played cricket with my friends at Ferry Point Park, and took the one...
So interestingly, talking about eating pizza at Coronet's Pizza, which I've done I would say most New Yorkers could relate to that. But then talking about playing cricket, which is not something most New Yorkers can relate to. Talking about a sport that is more common among people he grew up with where he was initially born and those from his diaspora.
Train to the BX10 only to still show up late to Bronx Science. The city where I have gone on hunger strike just outside these gates. Sat claustrophobic on a stalled N train just after Atlantic Avenue and waited in quiet terror for my father to emerge from 26 Federal Plaza. The city where I took a beautiful woman named Rama.
So really painting a vivid picture of his lifelong set of experiences in New York City relating to the average New Yorker.
To McCarran Park on our first date and swore a different oath to become an American citizen on Pearl Street. To live in New York, to love New York, is to know that we are the stewards of something without equal in that.
And not afraid to remind people, he's not a natural-born citizen. He became a U.S. citizen. He became naturalized. Not afraid to mention it.
Our world. Where else can you hear the sound of the steel pan, savor the smell of sancocho, and pay $9 for coffee on the same block? Where else could a Muslim kid like me grow?
And mentioning the fact that he's Muslim. Again, we live in a country where most politicians say they're either Christian or a part of a Judeo-Christian culture. It's still a bit unusual to be a Muslim and not only run for office, but win.
Grow up eating bagels and lox every Sunday. That love will be our guide as we pursue our agenda. Here, where the language of the New Deal was born, we will return the vast resources of this city to the workers who call it home. Not only will we make it possible for every New Yorker to afford a life they love once again, we will overcome.
So here he's talking about his main promise of affordability. We're going to make it possible for New Yorkers to be able to afford their dream. This is the message he ran on. It's very hard to do, but you have to talk about your campaign promises in your inauguration to continue setting expectations and set the agenda.
The isolation that too many feel and connect the people of this city to one another. The cost of childcare will no longer discourage young adults from starting a family, because we will deliver universal childcare for the many by taxing the wealthiest few.
Okay, this is a big promise. There's obviously controversy there. Free child care for everyone by taxing the few, meaning the wealthy. This is where it gets tricky. He did run on this. He's not backing away. But important to note, especially if you don't live in New York City and follow New York City politics, the mayor can't simply raise taxes. It doesn't work that way. It's extraordinarily complex, and it involves the governor, the state legislature, and other bodies.
Those in rent-stabilized homes will no longer dread the latest rent hike because we will freeze the rent.
Another campaign promise. This is highly controversial, not just by conservatives who think that's unwelcome intrusion into government, but I would say by most liberal economists who believe that in the long run, it only makes things worse. It exacerbates housing situations because developers then don't build new homes if there is rent control. And it also creates a lot of inequity because it tends to benefit old timers and people who've been in New York City a long time, as opposed to new people, new blood coming in, and often new immigrants. So a lot of controversy, but it does play well in the polls, and he is sticking with it.
Getting on a bus without worrying about a fare hike or whether you'll be able to get to your destination on time will no longer be deemed a small miracle because we will make those buses fast and free.
Okay, making buses fast and free, a pivotal promise, a pivotal plank in his campaign. And again, we'll see if he can do it. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do. New York City cannot run deficits. It's not the U.S. government. But interestingly, other mayors, even Bloomberg, the Republican, floated this idea. So many who instantly discount this as some sort of a radical extremist left-wing thing don't really know their history. We'll see if he's able to enact it, but it's something he campaigned on. It's something he's setting the agenda where he's at least going to try to do it in this term.
These policies are not simply about the costs we make free, but the lives we fill with freedom. For too long
That's
in
a
our
nice line.
city, freedom has belonged only to those who can afford to buy it. Our city hall will change that.
So he is addressing something there that, let's be honest, it's real. New York City is a great place. I would argue it's the greatest place in the world if you got a lot of money because there's more fun things, more great restaurants, more great entertainment, and fabulous real estate, but it's all wildly expensive. He's trying to make it a nice place for middle class, lower middle class, and others. So that's the aspiration, and that did resonate. There's no doubt about it.
These promises carried our movement to City Hall, and they will carry us from the rallying cries of a campaign to the realities of a new era in politics. 2 Sundays ago, as snow softly fell, I spent 12 hours at the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, listening to New Yorkers from every borough as they told me about the city that is theirs. We discussed construction hours on the Van Wyck.
I think one little slip of one word, which is interesting to me just because of the fact that he's been speaking for 18 minutes and 30 seconds, and it's the first even tiniest stumble over a word. I think he just put in an extra consonant there, and then he clarified it. So a truly stellar performance. There are professional news anchors who read teleprompters 3 hours a day who can't go this long without making a tiny stumble. He's clearly a master communicator.
Expressway and EBT eligibility, affordable housing for artists and ICE raids. I spoke to a man named TJ who said that one day a few years ago.
And for the record, I'm not that TJ. He was speaking to someone else.
His heart broke as he realized that he would never get ahead here, no matter how hard he worked. I spoke to a Pakistani auntie named Samina, who told me that this movement had fostered something too rare, softness in people's hearts. As she said to me in Urdu, "Logo ke dil badal gaye hain."
So speaking in Urdu and sounding like he's pretty comfortable with the language is different. It does make him seem positioned as a new type of mayor, new type of politician, new cultural influences. And quoting the woman saying there's a softness in people's hearts now, there's that warmth and positivity, which is very much in contrast to so much of the national conservative media trying to paint him as someone who is all about more violence in the streets and criminals going crazy and making New York City a hellscape.
142 New Yorkers out of 8.5 million. And yet, if anything united each person sitting across from me, it was the shared recognition that this moment demands a new politics and a new approach to power. We will deliver nothing less as we work each day to make this city belong to more of its people than it did the day before. Here is what I want you to expect from the administration that this morning moved into the building behind me. We will transform the culture of City Hall from one of no to one of how. We will answer to all New Yorkers, not to...
That's a nice rhetorical flourish. We will transform this culture from one of no to one of how. That really sums up, I think, what a lot of citizens of any city want if you go to City Hall with a problem, not simply to be told no. Now, that's easier to say than to actually do, but it's a nice rhetorical flourish.
Any billionaire or oligarch who thinks they can buy our democracy. We will go.
So here we are, 20 minutes in. This is really the first negative reference to billionaires and oligarchs. And that is surprising to some people who expect anyone with the label socialist attached to their name. They expect you to come right out of the gate attacking the billionaires and oligarchs. Interestingly, that's not what he did.
Govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist.
Okay, here we are, 20 minutes and 12 seconds into the speech. This is really the first time he's said, I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. So this is strong. This is powerful. Clearly controversial. Many Americans, even some in New York City, think of socialism. They think of Fidel Castro and people starving to death in Mao's China. They think of bread lines in the Soviet Union when you say socialism. So it is a charged word, and it is showing he's not calibrating. He's not going for a rebrand in this inauguration, but arguably he's softening it and downplaying it because there's only 4 minutes left in the speech, and this is the first time he's addressing his party label and the party label he wants attached to how he governs. So it's forceful on the one hand, but it's very softened by the positioning and the placement in the speech.
I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical.
Interestingly, I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. Now, again, I think anyone, if you've never ever heard of this guy before, and you watch the first 20 minutes of this speech, and you were somewhat familiar with American politics, you might think, okay, this is sort of a mainstream Democrat. You wouldn't really think of him as sounding particularly ideological one way or the other until this statement right here, where he acknowledges people just love to talk about him as a radical. He doesn't look or sound radical yet.
As the great senator from Vermont once said, what's radical is a system which gives so much to so few and denies so many people the basic necessities of life. We will strive each day to ensure that no New Yorker is priced out of any one of those basic necessities. And throughout it all, we will, in the words of Jason Terrence Phillips, better known as Jadakiss or Jay to the moi, be outside. Because this is a government of New York, by New York, and for New York.
So, somewhat defiant there, basically saying he's not going to have his administration determined by outsiders and larger national political media interests. He's going to try to do what he thinks is best for New Yorkers. So, not obviously not a controversial thing, but saying it in a way that comes across forceful and with authority.
Before I end, I want to ask all of you, if you are able, whether you are here today or anywhere watching, to stand with me. I ask you to stand with us now and every day that follows. City Hall will not be able to deliver on our own. And while we will encourage New Yorkers to demand more from those with the great privilege of serving them, we will encourage you to demand more of yourselves as well. The movement we began over a year ago did not end with our election. It will not end this afternoon. It lives on with every battle we will fight together. Every blizzard and flood we would...
So he's coming across, I have to say, very statesmanlike. Now, there was a time, even 10 years ago, where you could say, well, a politician with a beard seems radical, seems out of the mainstream. American politicians are clean-shaven. This isn't Abraham Lincoln time anymore. But times have changed. The Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, has a beard. So he comes across, most people would say, conventionally good-looking, charming, attractive, good smile. And he really is coming across to, I think, anyone other than extreme right-wing partisan as extraordinarily statesmanlike.
Stand together. Every moment of fiscal challenge we overcome with ambition, not austerity, together. Every way we pursue change in working people's interests rather than at their expense, together. No longer will we treat victory as an invitation to turn off the news. From today onwards, we will understand victory very simply. Something with the power to transform lives, and something that demands effort from each of us every single day. What we achieve together will reach across the 5 boroughs, and it will resonate far beyond.
So interesting touch, asking everyone to stand, signaling that he's close to ending, getting people up, which is kind of nice, especially on a cold day, getting to move your body a little.
There are many who will be watching. They want to know if the left can govern. They want to know.
Interestingly, there, I believe it's his first reference to actually calling himself the left, not the center, not the Democrat, but literally labeling himself the left and acknowledging that there are many who are skeptical that the left can actually govern because there aren't a lot of examples in recent times of anyone using the label the left and having a major position, an executive position. There's been someone like a Bernie Sanders in the Senate, but that's different as being a small town mayor, Burlington, Vermont. But as far as governing a state or a city of 8 million, that's much less common.
Know if the struggles that afflict them can be solved. They want to know if it is right to hope again. So standing together with the wind of purpose at our backs, we will do something that New Yorkers do better than anyone else. We will set an example for the world.
That's setting a high bar, saying he wants New Yorkers to set an example for the whole world. He's basically telling people, hold me to high expectations. And in a way that is not coming across as arrogant. He's not just saying, I'm the greatest, I'm the best in the world. He's saying, give me a chance. Let's all hold ourselves to higher standards.
If what Sinatra said is true, let us prove that anyone can make it in New York and anywhere else too. Let us prove that when a city belongs to the people, there is no need too small to be met, no person too sick to be made healthy, no one too alone to feel like New York is their home. The work continues. The work endures. The work, my friends, has only just begun. Thank you.
Wow. Powerful ending. He timed it nicely. He came across completely confident and relaxed and did not rush off, smiled, waved to people. So very, very positive. So what are we to make of this inaugural address? I'm going to anger a bunch of you right now because some of you already hate me because I said nice things about this guy. But I also think that President Trump is a great communicator. Completely different style. But President Trump is a brilliant, brilliant communicator in that he knows how to capture attention. He knows how to get the attention of the media. He knows how to communicate at the emotional level and really connect with people. Now, Mamdani is a very different type of communicator, but he's similar in the sense that he's truly a world-class communicator. Does that mean he's going to have a successful run as mayor? It certainly doesn't guarantee that. But being an excellent, excellent communicator is an extraordinarily important piece of the puzzle when it comes to being successful in political office, whether you're mayor, governor, president, senator, anything else. So he definitely has that. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just grinding a political axe. And I'm not here to grind a political axe. As I mentioned to you, I have voted for Republican mayors in New York City in the past. I actually think that President Trump is not in a traditional oratorical sense a great oratorical speaker, but he's a great communicator. Fantastic at communicating with emotion, putting a spotlight on things. Mamdani is a world-class communicator. I'd put him up there with the Bill Clintons of the world, with the Ronald Reagans of the world, and that is rarefied air. Could something blow him out of the water, some scandal or some crisis, a crime spree in New York City to the point where no one's even talking about it? It's possible. But for right now, if you're judging him based on this inaugural address, I'd have to give it an A++ rating. And I don't think anyone serious who's not a political hack could do otherwise. I mean, it was just pitch perfect. It was absolutely error-free. I've made 1,000 more errors and stumbles over words in the little bit I've said here than he did in the entire inaugural address with the world looking at him. So, good speech, Mr. Mayor. We'll see if you can continue to use this charm, the same charm he used in the White House. I mean, he essentially had President Trump eating out of his hand. Is he going to be able to get the New York City or the New York State legislature or governor to do that? I'm more skeptical about that, but we'll see. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me for this special edition today, doing a deep dive analysis of the New York City mayor's inaugural address. If you're listening to this on any podcast platform, please subscribe, follow to the podcast. Please leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube or any other social media platform, please leave comments, sign up for notifications, and subscribe. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.